Are you ready for chapter 3? Chapter 3 in the book, I thought it was just me, but it isn't. Making the journey from what will people think to I am enough. And chapter 3, it talks about the first element, recognizing shame and understanding our triggers. Finally, we can really tell where shame comes from. Maybe, yeah. And so Brene tells us that shame usually floods emotions like fear and blame, and we often can't recognize until after we've reacted and until we've moved away from that. There was this instance that I found myself in shame, but at that time I didn't know it, and it probably took me either a week or 2 weeks later to figure out, oh, that was shame. And so just knowing that life is a journey and that we're not machines, and so even with all the tools in the world, we might not be able to recognize shame instantly, but we can learn to do it faster and faster and faster, because for sure I know that I've been in shame and didn't recognize it. And so usually our bodies are the best tool to know when we're in shame. Our bodies react before our conscious mind does. So you can start, it's kind of like you can start thinking about, okay, I have a sweet tooth. So you can start thinking about eating a delicious chocolate cake, and you can imagine it. And then, right now I just produce a little bit more saliva just thinking about it. So I'm not eating the cake, but my body's already reacting to the thought of the cake. And so the more that we get in tune with our bodies, the easier it'll be to recognize when we're in shame. And so here's some questions from Brene Brown that help us recognize shame. I physically feel shame on my, so in your shoulders, in your chest, in your stomach. So your shame symptoms can include, it could taste like, it could smell. If I could smell shame, it would smell like. If I could touch shame, it would feel like. That's my dog walking away. I guess she doesn't want to talk about shame anymore. And then another thing that will help us to recognize shame a little bit faster is that there's usually, according to Brene, there's 12 categories of shame. So let me just read them to you. Money and work, family, parenting, motherhood or fatherhood, appearance and body image, mental and physical health, addiction, sex, aging, religion, stereotyped and labeled, speaking out, and surviving trauma. So she has this whole process that I'll walk you through. So first, pick a category, one of these 12 categories, and then you're going to answer the following question. You're going to identify 3 to 5 ideal identities I want to be perceived as. So let's pick motherhood. So I want to be perceived as a good mom. I want to be perceived as a caring mom. So let's not do good. So let's do caring, helpful, and encouraging. Encouraging, helpful, wrong. Okay. And then unwanted identities, I do not want to be perceived as. I don't want to be perceived as a helicopter mom. I don't want to be perceived as a mom that doesn't care. And I don't want to be perceived as a mom that's too harsh. And now we'll see, what does this perception mean to me? The unwanted identity. So the unwanted identity of being a helicopter mom, what does this perception mean to me? It means that I always have to be in control. I can't trust anybody. Why is this so unwanted? It's, you're looked down on. Again, it's what do other people say? Where did this message that fueled this identity come from? Probably media. And then you can do that again with the another unwanted identity. What does this perception mean to me? Why it said so unwanted? Where did the message that fueled this identity come from? And so why is this so important? Because we can't consciously change something that we're not aware of. So the more that we start diving in to our habits, to the way that we think, the easier it'll be to pick up on those tiny little cues that our body's sending us of saying, this might be shame. Because it starts out with whispers and then it gets louder and louder and louder. And by the time it's yelling at you, you're already deep in it. And then another really good thing that this chapter talked about was trauma. Our body doesn't know small trauma from big trauma. It just says trauma is trauma, and it says it's a threat that we can't control. So in order to deal with shame, some of us move away by withdrawing, by hiding, silencing ourselves, or keeping our secrets. And remember, the more that we stay in those states, the more power that shame has over us. And sometimes the way that we handle shame is because it's so ingrained in us that we can't see it. So we've talked about identifying shame, looking at our patterns, and how empathy can really help us to build our resilience for shame. And so I invite you to look at the 12 categories, and I'll write them in the comments so that you can look at them and see how they affect you. Again, the more we practice, the more empowered we are, the wiser we are, because we can have all this knowledge, but if we're doing nothing with it, then it's just knowledge. We're just filling up the bookshelf. We're not really learning from it. So I hope you enjoyed basically my take on chapter 3 of the book. I thought it was just me. And know that you are not alone. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And it's just taking one step at a time. Taking one step at a time. That's how we're gonna build our resilience. Okay, much love.